there's all these different coping skills and things that we use that inherently there's nothing wrong with them. It's when it takes up so much space that it is a negative in your life.
Are you ready to unlock conversations of resilience, triumph, and transformation? Well, you're in the right place. This is the Knocking Doors Down podcast. Your host, Jason LaChance, where we dive deep into the journeys of those who have overcome life's toughest challenges and are sharing their experience, knowledge, and insight into how you can do just the same. If you're checking out the podcast for the first time, hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening on, or hey, if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, leave a thumb up and a comment on the video, because not only do I see it, but so do my guests. And my guest is RJ Zimmerman, a father of two, This Naked Mind certified self-discovery after alcohol coach, and the founder of UntappedKeg, a podcast about sobriety and mental health. RJ and I had an awesome conversation. We discussed why you should do the deep work to enhance your life. We discuss how you can start to silence your inner critic. We discuss identity and how we see so many individuals who attach sobriety to their identity. RJ and I talk about those key moments in life. You could call them traumas or positive occurrences, but he suggests calling them data points, and we explore why. As well, we discuss authenticity and what does it truly mean, at least to us. We talk all that and more on this episode of Knocking Doors Down. RJ Zimmerman, thanks for joining me on Knocking Doors Down.
Hey, Jason, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. We got connected through a mutual friend, but for people not watching, you have an actual working proton pack in the background, and I'm a Ghostbusters nut, and I was like, oh, this guy and I are going to get along really well.
That's right. And for those not watching, I have a unicorn on the other side, so I'm here to bust the ghosts of your drinking past to get you to your rainbow unicorn future.
Oh, just mic drop. We're done. That's it. Shortest episode ever. Hey, let's get into gratitude. It's how I start my day. So it's like how I like to start my conversations. 3 things you're grateful for today.
So, this is a really wonderful practice, and I really appreciate that you start your episodes this way. One thing I'm grateful for is I just got done actually taking a walk at a botanical garden. Like, when I'm able to take some time for myself, go to the botanical garden and just enjoy walking, it sets me up so that the rest of my afternoon is going to be incredible. It doesn't matter what happens. It just gives me that feeling. Another thing I'm grateful for is my understanding of myself, so that I can notice times where I need to take a break. And it's been a really busy couple of weeks. It's about to be a busy week coming up. So taking that break today was really important for me. Actually, it was more important than what I realized, but I could understand that feeling. And the last thing that I'm grateful for is my 2 kids. So I have 2 boys who are 6 and 4, and the way that they have made me a better person, and then also how I can see the impact of the way that I parent on them in so many positive ways. Those would be my 3 that I'm grateful for. So
I love it. I love it. And it's such a blessing to be able to parent sober, which I didn't always do. But you said something really that resonated with me about your walk in the botanical garden this morning. And it give me your perspective, or even what you do. Maybe we could call it rituals and routines, and the importance of setting up the day. I know I have a busy workload. I know I can get disconnected really quickly from those that are important around me. And the more I create deep work rituals and routines, the better my day goes, and the more I'm able to handle things.
Yeah. And that's very much, I've had that same path, right? And what I've come to realize is just allowing opportunities for myself to find spaces to take time for myself, whether that's 10 minutes to get outside and just walk around the backyard, or it's building in some time to actually eat a meal, Like, so I have ADHD, and something that I've learned is when we get into a certain state, like we're going to ignore all of our body signals. So I will sometimes not eat until 9 p.m. and sometimes I won't eat till the next day. And I'm like, why am I so hungry? What is going on? And then I think back, oh, I forgot to eat the day before. And instead of getting mad at myself, right, it's that understanding of, oh, that's what this is. Okay, we'll make sure that we set a timer, set some alerts, right? But for me, it's not necessarily the daily rituals that have been the most important to me. It's setting my weeks up. So I know, like, I do a kung fu and fitness class, and I know that's on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. So I'm not going to schedule things, if I can help it, on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. That way that I can get that physical activity in besides walking. And then it's also looking for times where I can get out and go for a walk, whether that's, on Wednesdays. Generally my day is not as busy, so midday I can get out and go walk and enjoy some sunshine, and setting Fridays up so that they're not chaotic and I can have some flexibility. So if I don't get something done earlier in the week, well, Friday can be there for a little bit of a catch if I need it. And if I don't need it, great, I get an extra day for my weekend.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. The more people talk about having ADHD, I'm like, man, I should probably have my doctor look into that, because I have that same eating thing, and I don't think it's a eating disorder per se. It's just like, man, when I'm going, like, oh, I'm a freight train full speed, let's not throw the brakes on. And so it just leaves my mind like, oh, I need a little energy. I'm gonna just throw some more coffee on or something. Uh,
Yeah.
but I would like to explore that though. With when you were in your active alcoholism, do you think that contributed? And the reason I ask, I'm dyslexic, that has been proven, and there's a lot of those feelings very early on in life for me of being disconnected, feeling different, being even told by some of the kids, "Ha ha, you go to the special class," and all of these things.
Yeah, looking back at it, I didn't know it at the time, so I didn't get diagnosed until I was 33, which was about 4 years ago. And I didn't understand at the time that that is part of the reason that I did drink the way that I drank, which it wasn't often that I drank, but when I did, I drank all of it, like especially the last 2 years that I drank. And um, what I noticed when I look back is that acceptance that I got from my peers, because I always felt so different from them. And I was always looking for acceptance from my peers, acceptance from, my family members, acceptance from so many different areas, that when I drank, I would get that. So then I was looking for that acceptance. And then the first time that I got drunk, I remember that feeling of, like, the first time you put active noise canceling headphones on, like my brain just went silent, not completely silent, but it was just like that critic, that judgmental piece, that piece that's always searching for, like I said, that outside validation, that acceptance, that just kind of went silent. And then when first time that I had a stimulant, which was a little bit over 2 years ago, I had the same experience. And so I would describe these same things, the same experience, the same way. And I was like, wait a second, I was self-medicating with alcohol for ADHD. That is exactly what I was doing. And so for when I was on a stimulant, what that does for me is it takes my thoughts from like 500, it's actually probably more than that, to about 50, which there's still a lot going on, right? But it's a lot more manageable than what I'm used to. And so it feels like I'm removing a stimulus or a sense almost. And it just makes it less overwhelming inside
Yeah.
my head.
Yeah, I've had to develop different techniques to manage that. I'm not normally an organized person, so it's been I figure, okay, I'm beyond middle age, 45. People, unless I live to 90, it's about time I got a little organized with some of my stuff, and that seems to help and keep me more on task. But boy, that that resonates with me, that cutting the critic, because it was, I had childhood trauma. I grew up in a home of addiction, sexual abuse, things of that nature. And I know some people go, you say that so lighthearted, because for me now it is. I've
Right.
processed. It doesn't
You've
sit in my
worked through
body.
it.
Yeah, it doesn't sit in my body anymore. But it presented so much of that challenge of that inner critic and that voice, that shame, guilt. I mean, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and it's hard to get onto that next plane. But I know that's the work that you do, working with people. But I want to ask, what was the process for you?
Well, the first thing that I had to do was identify just how much I hated myself, or the fact that I did hate myself. And that was almost accidental. So it was a couple of years into doing this self work. So for me, I haven't drank in over 10 years, and 6 years into not drinking, my wife came to me and asked for a divorce. And like, that's when I went and got diagnosed with ADHD. That's when I started therapy and working on a lot of things around alcohol. And when we moved, we lived in Wisconsin for a while, and we moved almost 3 years ago to Virginia. And the reason that we did was to set up a better culture to raise our kids in. And one day I was recording a podcast, and she took the boys out to go play so they weren't making too much noise, so I could focus and be in the interview. And I was having a low mental health day. I wasn't feeling too great about things and myself. And they came home and they yelled, "Daddy, I missed you. I love you." And they come running up to me. And my first thought, which was really, really quiet and like really fast, but I caught it, was, how could you love such a piece of shit?
Wow.
What is wrong with you? And I was like, okay, like my eyes got wide. Like, where did that come from?
Wow.
What, I'm holding it against my kids that they love their dad. And with that, next time I looked in the mirror, I noticed there was like this slight recoil, and I hated that person that I was looking at. Like, there was this just deep sense of absolute self-loathing, and thinking about, and I'm a very analytical and logical person. And that's, a lot of that has to do with the childhood, and we couldn't feel our feelings and pushing everything to the side. But thinking for myself, how could I reverse this? Because how can I hold it against my kids that they love their dad? How often have I held it against my friends that they like being around me? And going through a divorce, did I cause this because I held it against her that she actually cared about me, right? And I knew that it wouldn't start with, "Hey, RJ, I love you. Like, look at everything you've done in your life. You've done some amazing things. This is incredible." Like, even saying that now and looking at myself, I don't feel the same aversion that I did at that time, but it doesn't feel completely true. And so what could I do instead? Well, I was like, okay, am I a bad person? No, I can objectively say I'm not a bad person. Like 5% of the time, maybe I've done some bad things. 95% of the time, I'm a pretty good person. Okay. Could I just say that I'm okay? I was like, yeah, that feels okay. That actually feels true. And so I'd shrug my shoulders, look in the mirror, just say, "You're okay. You're right. You're doing okay." And that's it. And that's where I started to really work on that self-critic, which was everything that I did. It wasn't good enough, and I used to hold that myself. I always shoot for perfection. I know I'm not going to reach it, but I'm always trying to be perfect. Well, with that mindset, even when I got close to it, I wouldn't acknowledge it. I wouldn't appreciate it. It was like, you're still a piece of crap. You can't reach that perfection, right? And that was holding me back, even though that was a sense of pride. So when things started to when I started creating stories and really having that thought loop of, you're a piece of crap, it's like, am I? No, I'm not. I'm just doing something that I don't really want to be doing. So let's figure out the step to get me to where I want to be doing something different. And then just being like, you're okay. Like, you're not actually a piece of crap.
That's so it's not even just people that are in recovery that struggle with that. Knocking Doors Down by Carlos Vieira, now available wherever you get audiobooks.
I wasn't done partying, and I didn't want the binge to end. I think I knew that when I finally got home, I'd have to face what I had done, and I wasn't ready to do that. Being responsible for my actions wasn't something I was looking forward to. I had abandoned my wife and baby, my family, and my business. I wanted to avoid the shame of returning to what I had left behind. Even though I was not yet going home, I wasn't sure I had enough resources to continue the binge.
Click the link in the podcast description to find out more. I mean, my goodness, how many people. I remember I was working with a young guy at a 12-step group that I attend. And he's like, I'm the worst person on the planet. And I'm like, are you really? Do you really think you're the worst person on the planet? Out of the billions of people, you're the worst. And I was like, you got to check your ego. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't think much of myself. I'm like, ego isn't always just I'm the greatest and every woman should bow down to me or whatever it is. It's the antithesis of that too. And for him, it was kind of a mind-blowing moment. I went, yeah, first time someone told me that, it blew my mind too.
Yeah. Yeah, that is. And taking that a step further too, with the ego, really what's underneath that, right? What's underneath the perfection mentality? We strive for that perfection. You're not always going to achieve it. But underneath it, right, is a protection. Like you're trying to protect yourself. You're trying to set yourself up for success. And is there anything wrong with that inherently? No, but it just like drinking or just like, the coping skill, working too much, going to the gym for 6 hours a day. Like there's all these different coping skills and things that we use that inherently there's nothing wrong with them. It's when it takes up so much space that it is a negative in your life. Like that is when it starts to become an issue, right? And a challenge and a problem. And so if you look at it from the perspective of at one time, that was really helpful for you. Now you can have that understanding. Okay. Yeah. One time it was, but it's not working anymore. So let's find something different that'll work with who I am now.
I think it's how did somebody illustrate? It's kind of like if you've ever been a dog owner and you got to potty train the dog. And well, then at a certain point, the training of the dog adjusts a little bit. Well, us with for me, much like you, alcohol and some other things they were coping tools. And to be honest, I probably wouldn't be here without them at one point in my life, but it gets to that point of it no longer serving. Matter of fact, it goes from this is a coping thing to this is your self-destruction coming right at you full speed.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that, you said something that really sat with me too, when you were talking about childhood and not really being able to express feelings. I felt that's where some of my perfectionism came from was, okay, well, if I do this or that, then I'm going to get some sort of recognition. And it took me a long time into adulthood, last 3-4 years, to accept that attention doesn't equal love.
And I just want people to sit with that for a second, because how much of our lives have we equated that and not realized it? And if you're honest with yourself, do you still equate that? Even if you know that attention doesn't necessarily mean love, are there still moments where you're letting that kind of take the reins? And that's not to put yourself down. It's not to, use it as for that critic, right? But what it is to be honest and be like, okay, I have to be honest about this and change the narrative a little bit, change how I'm looking at this situation. And that way I can kind of take some steps forward. So I'd be interested to know, when you had that realization, how did you start to break that cycle?
For me, it was a recognition that a lot of the attention that I sought, and I was kind of a late bloomer with substance use. It really wasn't until around 22. And drinking didn't become a problem. Well, okay, it probably was always a problem. It wasn't a noticeable problem, probably for about another 7 to 8 years. but that the attention that I was seeking was just, it was empty. And it was always this external thing. You know, one of my sayings is no outside solutions to inside problems. And that reason, you know, being able to come to that is that it's nobody else's job to make me like and love me, to enjoy my life. Like nobody's going to
Hmm.
provide that for me. You know, nobody's ever,
Yeah.
I've never hit the lotto. So my income has never just been, here it is. You spent $5 and you got 500 million. It's no different with that I was always looking for someone or something else to fill an external void. And I constantly was comparing my insides to other people's outsides, which is foolish. I mean, I've literally, when I go and speak to teenagers, I'll tell them about, I'll show them a picture of this lady I know, model, very nice looking. Like, doesn't she look happy on this yacht? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, here's the truth behind that. Not her yacht, not anyone she knows. Her manager literally went, okay, we use it for the day? I will pay for the fuel, and we're going to have a whole bunch of different shoots with all my clients on it. I was like, it's all fake. And I asked her about, she's like, most miserable day. The waters were high. I was feeling nauseous. I'm like, you know, so for me, it was always, wow, this looks so good and rosy. Like as a child, I connected to storytelling, be it through film, television, comic books, whatever it was. And so I always had this vision of some rosy crescendo coming from my life, or however you want to put it. And it just was, it's never there. They're really, you know, there's no dangling carrot that I'm going to catch. There's just the stick. I just have to keep going and
Yeah.
look inside.
Mm. And did you notice that the attention you were seeking too was because you felt you had to prove your worth?
Yes. And it was to people that I would never, ever be able to prove any worth, because what the frequency that I was resonating, so what I was attracting was the same kind of mentality. And you're never going to get it.
Yeah. Same. That's the same thing
Mm.
that I went through. I would, so, you know, really looking inside yourself with this introspection and being honest, like I looked at, okay, I talked about the acceptance that I was searching for when I was drinking. But like I could take that back further. Why did I want to be good at sports in school? Well, I wanted that acceptance from my peers, from other people, right? Well, okay, let's go a little bit back a little bit further. Why did I sometimes want to be the class clown? Well, I wanted that acceptance, right? Well, okay, go back a little bit further. What about being smart in school? I wanted that acceptance from my parents that I was doing good. And all of that, what that was built in was I was trying to prove my worth to get that acceptance. And I was looking at, okay, in college, why did I choose the friends that I did? The friends that ended up betraying me, that were so difficult. And I knew I saw other people that were really good people that wanted to be around me and stuff. Why did I choose the ones that I wasn't going to be able to prove myself to?
Right.
And then moving forward, coworkers, why did I always search for and then go to the places with coworkers that had really perfection standards, couldn't make any mistakes? And that was the approval that I was seeking. The people who knew I was a good worker, I was smart, and I was cut out for that job. Why did I not listen to them when they would give me compliments? Why wouldn't I choose to go to that crew? I chose to go to the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, I was trying to prove my worth. And if I didn't have to prove my worth to you, then I thought, oh, there's something wrong with you. And you're not actually going to like me when you find out who I am. So I need to go over this way because I have to prove myself in order to gain the acceptance. And what that did was I was accepted all along. I just couldn't see it. I couldn't open my heart to it. I couldn't accept it because I couldn't accept it in myself.
Yeah. And let me ask you, do you find in any sort of reflection that for me, those places I looked for acceptance played very well with my nervous system? So
Mm-hmm.
it could take me to the lowest of lows, and then if there was something, boy, the adrenaline's rushing, the dopamine, the highest of highs. At my core, most of all, I'm a recovering people pleaser. And I was
Yeah,
a really good chameleon. I could play the role. Shit, RJ,
absolutely.
I was good. I should have stuck with acting because I was pretty damn good at it in daily life.
And that's something that when I moved from Wisconsin to Virginia, I'd already started to notice this, that the RJ showing up to work different than the RJ showing up as a husband, different than RJ showing up as a dad. I was different than who I was showing up as a son, different showing up with different friends. And there'd be moments where I'd make a joke and I'd be like, wait, that's not for this group. That's for a different group. All right. Don't just act like you didn't mean to say that. Right. And the proton pack would be a good example. Like in a lot of situations, I wouldn't be a nerd, right? I wouldn't be smart. I would be quiet and just try to blend in. And, Brene Brown talks about this a lot too, especially for recovering people pleasers. There's a difference between fitting in and belonging. When you're trying to fit in, you're changing yourself. You're changing who you are. You're changing, you're going against your core values to find where you fit in. And belonging is you're accepted just by being who you are. Mm-hmm. And so if you show up in the spaces that you're supposed to be and you are yourself, that's where you're going to find those people that are going to be there for you. And you're not going to have to prove your worth. You're not going to have to change who you are. You can be nerdy. You can be, somewhat smart and somewhat, blue collar and hardworking. You can be all of these things. You don't actually have to separate who you are in these different areas. And that was a gift that I got moving across the country, was that I got to just decide, no, this is me. I'm going to find people who are okay with that. And that's who I'm going to surround myself with, rather than, trying to fit into every group and feeling like, oh, I can make everybody like me.
Yeah. I don't know where you're I'm so wonderfully comfortable now with, oh, I don't fit in with this. Perfect. I'm no longer going to waste my time or energy, let alone theirs. Like,
Yep.
you're fine people, just not for me.
Yeah, exactly. And that is that moment where all of a sudden you accept yourself at a deeper level than you did before, because you see how you're living in alignment with your values, right? You're just like, this is me. I'm not going to hide who I am. And I just get to be me now. And yeah, that's when, like, the art of detachment, right? And that art of not defining yourself based on the outcomes, right? You're not attaching yourself to those outcomes. You're just, well, I did what I could do. I did my best. And that's all I could really do. So what can I do next? Yeah. What do I want to do next? Not even what can I do, but what do I want to do?
Yeah. And I think it's I don't know. I mean, give me your perspective. I see it more in the United States, just because it's, I haven't traveled abroad in quite a few years, but it's a lot of the identity crisis of who I am. And I still see people defining by job, socioeconomic status, as simple as the car they drive or whatever, and attaching all these things that are external and can be taken in an instant as to who they are.
And here's one for you that I wonder if how much you'll resonate with this, but how many people attach their identity to their sobriety?
Oh, a lot. That actually just gave me sweatshirts on so you can't see it. That gave me chills, because I know I did. And in reflection, because well, some people say slip up. I say relapse. It lasted a night just over 3 years ago. And I was being a dry drunk, but my identity was so attached to that. Everything I would say, okay, guys, well, if we're going out, remember, I don't drink, and like everything. It was the all consuming, as opposed to any exploration of life. I wasn't living any different. I just went home and isolated without imbibing any substances.
Yeah. And that's similar to what I did too. And, the reason I bring that up is because so many people, when you identify yourself with an external thing, like, you could put it onto anything, right? Anything that you see in America or even across the world, when you identify yourself with that, external thing. Anybody who challenges that external thing, now they're attacking you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they challenge that, if they challenge, like, let's say you stopped drinking with This Naked Mind, which I'm using that because I'm certified This Naked Mind coach and I coach for their programs. But there are people that if you attack This Naked Mind's philosophy, or not even attack, you just challenge it, like, well, I don't agree with this part of it. There's people that will go to the mat, like swinging. How dare you? And it's like, wait a second, could this make it more accessible to other people? Is there something here that we could drill down and make it better? But because you're so consumed with your identity and where, how things happened, you think this is the only way that I can, that this can be done. This is the way that I did it. And you close your mind off to other ways of, as you said, living, other ways of being able to enjoy little things in life. Like if you'd asked me 2-3 years ago if I'd go to the botanical garden and it would be something that would recenter me and bring me joy, I would have said no. Like, sure, it'd be nice to go with somebody I care about, but I'm not going to go by myself and walk around. What is there to, why would I do that? There's nothing really there. But you slow down and you're open-minded to actually enjoy some of these the solar eclipse just happened this week when we're recording this, right? Slow down and enjoy that. Like the solar eclipse happened, and sure, yeah, it happens. It's the moon blocking the sun. Who gives a shit? But at the same time, if you take some time out and you appreciate the fact that, wow, just this happens. Does it happen fairly often across the earth? Sure. But it's really interesting and it's really cool. And you can stoke that childlike wonder of, I wonder what else is happening out there that can cause this kind of, beauty and this kind of change in the world. I wonder what else we could find. And just taking that and putting it into your life, like, what else could I enjoy now that I don't drink? Yeah. What else could I enjoy the same things that I did while I was drinking? Maybe, but maybe you find out that you didn't actually enjoy those in the first place. Right? You just told yourself you did. And that's okay.
Have you dug into the archives of past Knocking Doors Down podcast episodes? The Knocking Doors Down podcast archive is available to you for free. Check it out. Here's a snippet from when Charlie Sheen was on the podcast.
AA is not the best place for a famous atheist. I kept looking for that fucking chapter. So yeah, but it's not a one size fits all.
Sure.
It's like saying that we all think the same, like our brains are built the same. They're just not.
Right. Yeah.
There's such uniqueness involved.
Check out this episode and so many more in the Knocking Doors Down archive. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumb up, leave a comment, and share with somebody else that you know will get value out of the Knocking Doors Down podcast. I've always kind of hung on the Walt Whitman quote of be curious, not judgmental. And a situation which I was prejudging myself. I'm a big rock fan. I worked in rock radio for 20 years, and I'm a huge Kiss fan. Well, my partner now, her and I, one of our first dates was going to see Kiss. And I said to her, this is the first time I'm going to ever see them without drinking. I don't know if I'll enjoy this. Like, I was really scared. And of course, they come out, I sing along to every song and I had an absolute wonderful time. We had went with some friends of mine, and it was great. It was great. But I was already in that judgmental phase of it as opposed to the curiosity, of course, them coming out and the fireworks and all the shit that they do. And it was pretty cool. And it really started leading me down a path of, simplest way to put it is I used to experiment with substances. Now I experiment with life. And even in the recovery process, like I've tried smart recovery, I've done 12 steps. I personally enjoy Celebrate Recovery. I just explore as much as I can. And doesn't mean I can't be a judgmental prick, because I do have my occasions where I really have to catch myself.
Oh, you're human?
I'm afraid so.
And so I've really been talking about judgments a lot, like the past month,
Mm.
because I think when it comes to judgments, right, I think it's a universal human trait that all judgments, even when we judge ourselves, they're based in an insecurity in ourselves.
Mm.
And so but you have to separate out the difference between judgments and opinions because they're two different things. And the best way to describe it is opinions, your mind is open. Like this is what you believe, but you're okay with discussing it. You're okay with having your mind changed. You're okay with evolving with where that goes. And judgments are something that you state as a fact. Like you're closed minded about it. Like this is kind of how it is. This is how that person is. This is why, right? And the thing is, when you're like, if you, let's say you're talking about, oh, I can't believe she would wear those clothes. Like, what is she thinking? Like, who let her go out that way? Well, why are you putting that onto her? Is it because you feel you can't wear those clothes and get away with it? Is it because you were told when you were younger you can't wear those clothes, so you think that nobody should be able to wear those clothes? What is it about her wearing those clothes that is actually bothering you to the point that you say, how dare she wear those clothes? And sometimes it's just the fact that she's giving herself permission to do something that you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think we do that some in addition to that is if we're talking maybe about women and it's a little like, whoa, we immediately go into, oh, she must be a slut, or oh my God, look at her, and we say all these things without knowledge of an individual overall. But
Yeah.
we have this thousands and thousands of year old machinery up here that subconsciously tells us and makes a lot of decisions that we're not consciously making.
And having that understanding, right, of the automatic thoughts that come into your head that you don't have control over, right? That's the thing about the subconscious and the unconscious. You don't actually have control over those. Can you change them over time? Absolutely. But do you have control over everything that they're putting out? Not overtly. Like, it's over time. And so when you understand that those first thoughts that you have, they might not even be yours. They might be something that was said in your childhood by your parents. They might be from a teacher who, really degraded you one time. They were a great person otherwise. And so you really like them, but one time they were really hard on you. And because you liked who they were as a person, you internalize that.
Yeah.
There's, might be from a peer or something like that. And so when you understand that those first, and sometimes it's like first 2, 3, 4, 5 thoughts you don't have control over, and it makes it more understandable why those thoughts are there. And now you realize, oh, I don't have the power of those thoughts being there in the first place. I have the power over what direction I choose to take those thoughts. Okay. Am I going to take them and follow them and say that those are me, that's what I want to do? Or am I going to take them and be like, okay, where did that come from? That's not true. That's something that's from somewhere else. That's from, my old way of thinking, way back in the 90s or 2000s, right? I don't have to think that way and I don't want to. So how do I want to frame it now? And that's really the power over your thoughts, not those automatic thoughts, but the direction that you take them.
Yeah. I had a recent recording, awesome lady, Martha Vargas, and she said, her perspective is choice is the ultimate superpower.
Mm.
And I had never thought of it that way. It was so simple. It's like, oh man, like, for instance, where I'm at in my recovery now, I don't know about you. If I decided to pick up and drink again, that was a choice made. I've gotten far enough along where it's no longer, that automatic reaction to, whatever stress, trauma, whatever may occur. I have enough tools. I have enough time. I have enough resources. I have enough community that for me now, that would be a choice.
Mm. And you mentioned something earlier that, some people call it relapse, some people call it slip ups. This naked mind, we call them data points for that very reason, because it is a choice. And so when you make that choice, instead of being hard on yourself and looking at like, how could I do that? Why Now you get to look at it and say, well, why did I make that choice? Why did I? What was underneath that? What maybe it was a buildup and it wasn't just one thing. Now you can start to break it down and use what was I looking to get out of alcohol at that point?
Yeah.
What was going on in my life that caused me to have this, trigger, which really is just like a heightened emotional response, right? What was it that just kicked off in my mind that I really wanted to have some alcohol? And then I made the choice that I would. And when you can kind of take that information, and you can take that information in times that you had a craving and you didn't act on it, that could also be a data point, right? Why didn't I? What did I use? Did it work? Was there something that I tried that didn't really work? Okay, maybe I'll try it again next time and try to change it a little bit, but maybe I'll just say, no, that one doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying that's something that when you can look at things from that open-minded perspective, like we were talking about, like now all of a sudden you can learn some information and all of these start to stack up.
Yeah. No, that I like that data point. That's because that perfectly describes my understanding of exactly why it happened. It was being in a people pleasing, being guilt tripped for moving on with my life and being connected to someone, choosing to remain connected to someone that there was no resonance of positivity anymore. And I definitely learned those things from that experience. And I'm lucky that and feel fortunate that I had people that I could reach out that picked up the phone at 4 or 5 in the morning. My time, I don't remember where they were at the time, maybe 8 their time, but to help me process it and walk through it. But I like that. I'm gonna assimilate that data point. That's a great way of putting it, because I got so much information out of it that it was, oh my gosh, I still have these areas that I need to work on. And it cemented this individual, for me, that I had to go, hey, I'm sorry, all contact just has to stop. I wish you the best in life. This isn't out of harm, but it's for my best interest, which I had never said at any point.
And that's a scary thing to do too. Like, that's a lot of unknowns that you embarked on there. You learned from and you took action on. And now, when it comes to trying to do something different, whether it's, having a healthy relationship with alcohol, which for a lot of people looks like not drinking alcohol at all, having, changing your routine when it comes to waking up in the morning or going to work out and having a healthier lifestyle, or, here's one that everybody in the recovery community, I'm sure, can attest to, right? And that's sugar. How can I have a healthier relationship with sugar now? And when you are doing that, the reason it can be so daunting and scary, and it's because that unknown. What does my life look like without this?
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to be able to move through life and do things without this one thing? And it's like, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know, how it's going to benefit me. I just know I want to try and see. And let's just give it a shot. What's the worst that's going to happen? Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing before. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. And I've asked that of people. I don't know about you. Like, hey, let's give this 90 days and see what results come. Truly, honestly, give it 90 days. Let's see what comes of your life. Because, there's going to be a lot of unexpected things. Some of it's going to hurt, but some of it's really going to surprise you. Like, the longer I have sobriety, the more like things that I would have never accounted for happening. Like, it finally sunk into me, in season 2, I think, second year. I had Charlie Sheen on the podcast, and it dawned on me 3 weeks ago. I'm sitting and talking to this classroom of juniors and seniors, and somebody goes, well, have any of your dreams come true? And I went, oh my God, when I was a kid, Major League was one of my favorite movies. And I think I told my mom I'm going to do something with Charlie Sheen someday. I never thought it would be this, but somehow it happened. Like, it's like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I'm not riding high every day, and I'm just sharing that to share that, like, weird things happen when you start to just be open to this life experience.
And, you illustrate a really great point too of taking some time. This is something that you can build into your life, like, a ritual or something you can go back to, but taking a look at the past year, the past week, past month, what are some things that you've done that you didn't fully take stock of in the moment, that now you can look back and be like, holy crap, I did that. I didn't realize that would be so important to me. I forgot how important that was to me, and you can give yourself that credit in that moment. And that feels pretty damn good.
Yeah. When did you start exploring the naked mind and decide to get certified?
About a year and a half ago. So
okay.
I started the podcast about 4 years ago. That was when I was doing therapy, and I really wanted to share with people like some of the things, because I was out externally a really successful person, but I had this battle going on. Not everything was easy for me. So I wanted to let people know they weren't alone. And when I moved, I stopped my career as a high voltage line tech because I was going to be a single dad. So having kids 50-50, the time demands of that job, it didn't make sense. And I wanted to figure out how I could make my career in this space where I really love giving back to people. And, it turns out ever since I was younger, like I really like coaching, whether it was a sports or, even like tutoring people or showing them how to do things. So I heard an advertisement about getting certified for This Naked Mind as a alcohol-free life coach. And so I was like, oh, I don't really know too much about this. I didn't read the book or anything. And I was just like, oh, I'll see what it is. The first meeting, everything that they talked about was, compassion first, like science-based, understanding like there's things underneath the alcohol. Like, sure, alcohol is what we want to change. There's things underneath that when you change, that's where the magic happens. And I was like, okay, this is everything that I agree with, that I found and explored. And I totally get with, based on like the podcast and everything that I've been learning. And so I was like, all right, I'll try this and see how it goes. And so the further I got into it, I was like, this is very much just, I haven't had too many like major epiphanies, but I've had a lot of things that have, this aligns with my values. This aligns with how I view life. This gives me vocabulary to be able to use some of the things that I've done myself. And that's been huge too. And just exploring, how to be able to take these ideas that we have and then pass them on to other people in a way that is approachable and not just like, oh, if you do this, it's going to work and you're going to feel great. Yeah. But how can you actually break that down and be like, well, if you start with, like I said earlier, start with looking in the mirror and just saying you're okay. See how that starts the process of getting to a place where now I can look in the camera and say, I like myself. I like who I am. I'm definitely a friend of myself. Can I say I love myself? Maybe that's something that I'm a barrier from myself, which I should probably look at, but I'm getting there. I know I'm working closer to that. And that's what it's all about, is that progress over perfection.
Yeah. And I think I don't know if I guess every human probably goes through a crucible of sorts, or at least I think if you're experiencing life, you do. And that good old question of who am I, and no longer looking at it as these external factors. I noticed I got asked maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and then doesn't matter who it was asked me in the last month or so, and I went, well, I'm compassionate, I'm kind, I'm loyal, and it was like you've been saying. All of a sudden I realized I am my values.
Yes.
Good place to be.
It is. And, when people say, act in alignment with yourself, what is it they really are talking about? They're saying act, in accordance with your values.
Yeah.
And listen, being your authentic self. What does that mean? Right. Well, that just means you understand who you are. You understand where that alignment is, how that alignment feels. And then that self-acceptance, what is that, right? And that's just really allowing yourself to be who you are with that understanding.
Yeah. And it doesn't eliminate that, I'm pretty good about not taking situations over now that I'm sober, but I still have my moments where,
Mm-hmm.
I own the room. It's kind of part of my nature. I might have it under control if I'm being paid to do it. Oh yeah, it's like, okay, I do some different things like ring announcing for MMA. Okay, I'm paid to be the guy that's taken over. Okay, um, but then again, if it's a situation, hopefully, and if I made someone uncomfortable, maybe they say something, and I'm enough of a person now to make it an amends because that still aligns with my values, and my intentions are never to hurt, harm, or make anyone else feel lesser than. And it's an important shift to have. I mean, regardless of recovery or not.
Yes. And there are these external things, right, that they can be a part of who we are, but they're not the defining things about ourselves. They
Sure.
just are helping to explain, who we are in our life, right? Like I used to define myself based on my job, right? High voltage line tech. Okay. Well, what else? Well, I'm a dad. Okay. What else? Like I'm a husband. Okay. What else? What's underneath there? It's like, I don't know what you want me to say. A son, a
Mhm.
brother, right? Like, and not, but once you really start to have those words that you did, like compassionate, kind, like for myself, it's curious, it's creative, it's, you know, all like the evolving and the open-mindedness that comes with that, which is important for me in my creativeness and in my curiosity and all of that. It's understanding that I don't know everything and that's okay. And I'm willing to let you know when I'm not 100% sure, but we can talk about it right now and then look it up and see if we can find something. I'm okay with doing that, but I
Yeah.
don't know the correct answer off the top of my head.
Yeah. That was a hard thing for me to get to. I didn't realize I was such a damn know-it-all. And and it's so
Same.
peaceful to go, I don't know. Or my favorite is when somebody asks me an opinion and I used to think I had to have one for them is to go, I honestly have no opinion about that whatsoever. Well, you should. It's going on in society. And I go, and I've thrown it back. I remember this conversation and I go, well, what's your perspective on the addiction crisis right now? Oh, goodness, I don't know. And I go, right. See, I'm educated on that. I work in that field. I
Mm.
help in that field. So I know. But what you're asking me, I know nothing about. I'm sorry. Like it's not where my heart is. It's not where, if you want to say purpose or what life's presented to me to be of service in an area. It's like I can only do what I can do. I'm not omnipotent and I don't want that role.
And God, you're so right. Like, I don't know if that's, where that defense mechanism comes in. I know it's taught at some point, but you feel like you have to know everything because otherwise, that's a little bit of weakness, right? That,
Mhm.
oh, I don't know this. So therefore, that's a mark against me. That's and where I really noticed for myself that was something that was not good was when I was a high voltage line tech and I was a foreman of a crew and I'm working with high voltage utility lines, right? Like
Very
we
dangerous.
routinely worked with 12,000 volts live, sometimes 25,000 volts live, right? And so if I acted like I knew everything and I didn't allow for other people to give their opinion or like, hey, I saw this one time and it worked. If I didn't allow for that, and there were some crews that didn't, like you could get into a very dangerous situation very quickly. And so by opening my mind and being like, guys, this is how I'm viewing this one. How are you viewing it? Do you think that you have a better way? Can we mesh these two ways and be collaborative?
Sure.
And in that mind frame, it's like now I'm opening them up to have some ownership over what is going on. So everybody's going to have more of that teamwork mentality. But then I also took the pressure off of myself to
Mm.
have to be right.
Mm.
And I was like, what other areas am I doing this where I feel like I have to be right and I'm making it harder on myself than I need to? It was like, oh, dang. You mean life doesn't have to feel so difficult all the time?
Oh, yeah. That's thanks. I appreciate that. I still struggle with that. Uh, hey, we're gonna have to do this again or a follow-up bonus or something because this has been great. But if people want to connect with you, how can they do so? Let them know before we jump into those random questions.
Yeah, you can go to untappedkeg.com. I have 5 tips to begin your self-discovery journey beyond alcohol there that you can get for free. And then if you go to Instagram, UntappedKeg is the best way. My DMs are open, so anybody can DM me and just say, hey, what's up? And start a conversation.
All right. And those links are in the podcast description for anybody watching, listening. Get connected with RJ. I'm glad I did. That's the beautiful thing in this recovery thing is meeting awesome people that go, I've got another awesome person you should meet. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Let's do this.
Yeah.
All right.
So it is. It's incredible. I love it.
Yes, sir. Random questions. Here we go. What's a good one to start with for you? Oh, hey, why not? If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
So being the logical person that I am, and then not so much fun one, I'm going to say luck, right? Because I mean, you get through any situation if you're lucky every time. So that's the one. That's the one that I've said for a little while.
I think there was like an episode of Fringe or something like that that had a guy that he was just always lucky, like he would duck right when the beam was coming at his head, and it's like, oh, okay. What is something people might be surprised to learn about you? Maybe a hobby, interest?
What is something people would be surprised to learn about me? I really enjoy cooking. I think that cooking is one of my happy places, and just being able to plan a meal and then create it is something that when I'm really stressed out, that is one of the things, like walking in the botanical garden, that can bring me back to myself and recenter me and bring some clarity.
Yeah, there's something about when it's funny because my partner, she's always like, oh, we're having steak, you're cooking tonight, well, okay. But there's something about that for me, a release of being able to, okay, well, hey, I cook my steak at room temperature. It's going to come out 30 minutes early. And what else are we going to have with it? And there is something about that where it's a wonderful focus type situation. For me, it quiets stuff down.
Yeah, same. And that's what it does for me. It brings me into like that mindful state of you're still, you're focused on where your hands are and stuff like that. And so it takes you out of your brain. But then things are processing in the background. And now you might have freed up enough processing space to be able to be like, oh, I couldn't see that perspective before. Now I can. And that's a heck of a state to be able to enter.
Absolutely. It's almost like the, what do they say? Best thoughts in the shower, because you're just in process, and it's like, oh, okay. All right. What's another? Oh, if there was a movie made about your life, what genre would you want it to be, and who would you want to play adult you?
I'm going to have to say a comedy in the vein of Ted Lasso. And who would play me as the adult? I feel like I'm just going to say the one that feels right off the cuff, and that's Matt Damon. Yeah.
All right.
Going there.
Hey, I'm going to challenge you here, RJ. If it was a musical comedy, because I've met the man, Chris Daughtry, the singer. I don't know if people have said you guys look a lot alike.
Oh, really? I haven't heard that one, but
yeah,
I love Chris Daughtry, so I'm all for it. Let's go.
Yeah, charming smile, the no hair, and yeah. Oh, I could see that. Do you have a go-to song, either that you sing or put on that change the mood or whatever?
So, depending on the mood, right? So karaoke, it's "She Hates Me" by Puddle of Mud. That's my go-to song. Everybody starts singing it. Like that is the one. And I've done it sober multiple times. So it's a lot of fun. But let's see here. If I'm feeling kind of down and I really want to get get my vibes up, it's going to be Africa by Toto, or it's going to be some Lizzo,
Okay.
something by Lizzo to,
All right. I dig it. Oh, that's funny. That's a great karaoke. I never thought of that one, but of course everybody likes it because they get to drop the F bomb with you at the same time.
yep, that is the truth.
All right, last random question here. If you were stuck on a deserted island and you had one movie, one music artist greatest hits, and one book, what would they be?
So the movie is going to be it's going to be Ghostbusters,
All
the
right.
first one, the original. Um the so the artist, it would be all their records or one of their records.
Just the greatest hits.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Linkin Park. I mean,
Oh,
I love Linkin Park, and yeah, it's a fantastic library. And then book. Um, so for the book, I'm gonna go Let Your Light Shine, which is about how yoga and mindfulness completely changed around the Baltimore school system. These two brothers and a really, really great friend went in there with yoga practices and mindfulness. And they took a school that was the most suspended and most expelled and like had the biggest, uh, the hardships of really tough being raised in tough situations and circumstances and turned it into in 1 year they like dropped it down by like 90% less, and then in 2 years there were no suspensions. And so it's by the Holistic Life Foundation if people want to look it up, but
yeah.
it's incredible. And then you can be able to you can see how like it, if you've had a really chaotic childhood with a lot of trauma, you can see how you can use some of those principles in your life. And it it's a really incredible story. So
Oh, I'll check it out. Thank you. Thank you.
yeah.
Well, RJ, this is where I give you the floor as I said, the Jerry Springer moment where you get to drop some final thoughts and words of encouragement, whatever you'd want to lend.
Let's go with what we were talking about earlier with self-talk. And when people a lot of times hear, well, self-talk, my critic is my driving force. My critic is why I do better. My critic, it doesn't, without him, how am I going to be able to move forward? Does that mean I get to be an asshole and not look down on it? Right. Because I'm not, that's giving me carte blanche. But no, you're still holding yourself accountable. You're holding yourself accountable in a way that now you can have useful language rather than, like I said earlier, I'm a piece of shit. Where am I supposed to go with that? What am I supposed to do with it? That was my critic telling me that I was that. So where am I supposed to go? Instead of changing that to, hey, that thing you did, that was a really shitty thing. Let's try to do different next time. Let's look at how we can be better. And which one is something that you would like to have in your life? Would it be just the I'm a piece of shit? Or would it be, hey, that thing that you did, that was really crappy. You can do better than that. Here's a step we can take to be better in this situation, whether it's learning how you can do that, learning about something you don't know, whether it's admitting that, you don't know everything, and try and find just small steps and don't try to get to that perfection moment. Just work towards it.
Yeah. RJ Zimmerman, thank you, good sir. This has been an absolute pleasure.
This was fantastic. Thanks for having me, Jason.
You got it. And on that note, remember, no outside solutions to inside problems, and keep knocking doors down.